Let's begin by telling you what all is unlocking today. Shops and malls, restaurants in the national capital will be open from today as COVID numbers in the capital continue to show a drop. We are actually at a 3-month low, but fingers crossed because it cannot go back to the numbers. If it does, the Chief Minister has said after the end of a week, they're going to tabulate the numbers again. And if there is an increase, they might go back into stricter measures as well. This means that buses, metro services continue to work at 50% capacity, and even restaurants and salons now open.
Shops, malls and restaurants will open as COVID cases in the national capital drop to a 3-month low.
जितने मार्केट्स हैं, मार्केट कॉम्प्लेक्स हैं, मॉल्स हैं, वो अब पूरी तरह से सारी दुकानें खुल सकती हैं 10 बजे, लेकिन 10 बजे से 8 बजे तक शाम को। और जो रेस्टोरेंट हैं वो 50% सीटिंग कैपेसिटी पे काम करेंगे।
So what is allowed and what is not? All educational institutions, social, political, cultural, religious gatherings, swimming pools, stadiums, movie halls, public parks and entertainment parks, spas to remain closed. From 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., markets and malls shall reopen while the odd-even system ends. Restaurants with 50% seating for a 1-week trial, weekly markets with 50% vendors, places of worship but no devotees allowed, salons to open. But even as Delhi unlocks in a phased manner, an increased footfall at vegetable markets but with strict guidelines.
देखिए, जो लोग मास्क नहीं लगा रहे हैं, हम सबसे पहले तो उनसे अपील करते हैं और अगर उसके बाद नहीं मानते हैं तो उनका चालान किया जा रहा है। मंडी के अंदर लगातार एपीएमसी द्वारा चालान की प्रक्रिया जारी है, लोगों को समझाया जा रहा है। उसके बाद भी अगर कोई नहीं मान रहा है तो हम उनके लाइसेंस निरस्त करने की भी प्रक्रिया अपनाते हैं, पर अभी तक ऐसा कुछ हुआ नहीं है।
पिछले 2 महीने से काफ़ी लॉस हुआ है, कस्टमर्स नहीं थे और बिजनेस पर बहुत बड़ा इफेक्ट पड़ा इस चीज़ का।
देखो, वर्कर को हम 50% सैलरी तो दे ही रहे थे, जो हमारे उनके 50% सैलरी हमने दी है, अपनी जेब से दी है, वो टोटल लॉस है। वो भी कहाँ से लेंगे? जो हमारे रेगुलर कस्टमर्स हैं, मतलब रेगुलर सारे रेगुलर ही हमारे जो एम्प्लॉयज़ हैं, उनको भी तो चाहिए पैसे, वो कैसे सर्वाइव करेंगे उसके बिना? तो हमने उनको 50% दिया, वो सब भी लॉस ही हमारा, हमने कोई अर्न तो कुछ करा नहीं है इसमें।
Like it should not be locked down, but it should be unlocked, and with protocols and all, it should be unlocked. It should be unlocked. Yeah.
With active cases below the 5,000 mark and positivity rate at 0.3%, with strict protocols in place for markets, Delhi is unlocking in a phased manner at a time when it also braces for a possible third wave. With camera person Manu Nair in Delhi, Shanakshi Chakravarti for NDTV.
All right, so that was the national capital. What about Tamil Nadu? Well, that's unlocking as well. More relaxations there. And there as well, salons, beauty parlors, even government liquor shops would reopen from today. Tea shops can give only takeaways at the moment, and IT industry can function with 20% staff. The opposition is up in the arms against the reopening of liquor shops over there, something the DMK had opposed while in opposition. All right, on to the big political story of the day. 2 opposition parties in Uttar Pradesh, the Samajwadi Party and Aam Aadmi Party, have made allegations of corruption in the purchase of land for the Ram Janmabhoomi complex in Ayodhya, alleging that fraud had taken place with the connivance of the local BJP leaders and some members of the trust as well that is overseeing the construction of the Ram temple. Now, in Ayodhya, former Samajwadi Party MLA and UP Minister Pawan Pandey held a press conference earlier showing alleged documents that he said proved that the property located next to the Ram Janmabhoomi site in town was first purchased by 2 property dealers from an individual for 2 crores and then sold to the Ram Janmabhoomi for guess how much? 18.5 crores. And all this happened in a matter of minutes. Now, Mr. Pandey has asked for a CBI probe on this. The alleged transaction took place in March, and in his press conference, he actually held out several documents claiming they were stamp duty papers for both the transaction as well. He also claimed that both the papers had common witnesses, and the mayor of Ayodhya and a resident of the town, who is a member of the Ram Janmabhoomi Trust as well, he was also part of it. Similar allegations are made later by the Aam Aadmi Party leader and Rajya Sabha member Sanjay Singh. However, the VHP, the leader there, Champat Rai, a key member of the Ram Temple Trust, dismissed these allegations altogether.
उस जमीन ने 10 मिनट के अंदर ऐसा कौन सा सोना उगल दिया कि जिस जमीन का बैनामा 2 करोड़ में हुआ, 10 मिनट बाद वो जमीन 18 करोड़ की हो गई, 18.5 करोड़ की हो गई और 17 करोड़ रुपया आरटीजीएस किया गया। इसका मतलब जब बैनामा हुआ तो ट्रस्टी गवाह थे, जब रजिस्टर्ड एग्रीमेंट हुआ ट्रस्टी गवाह थे। इसका मतलब ट्रस्ट इस भ्रष्टाचार में लिप्त है। 16 करोड़ 16.5 करोड़ रुपए का भ्रष्टाचार लूट हुई है। इस लूट के जिम्मेदार कौन है कि 10 मिनट में 2 करोड़ से जमीन 18.5 करोड़ की हो गई? इसकी सीबीआई जांच होनी चाहिए। लोगों ने अपने खून पसीने को काट कर चंदा दिया, राम मंदिर के निर्माण के लिए सहायता किया, सहयोग राशि दिया। लोग गली गली भटके, राम के नाम पर मंदिर बनाने के लिए पैसा धन एकत्रित किया। और अगर आज उस धन का, राम भक्तों के उस धन की बंडर बांट होगी, जमीन खरीदने के नाम पे इतना भ्रष्टाचार होगा, तो मुझे लगता है देश में रहने वाले करोड़ों हिंदुओं का, हिंदुओं ही नहीं, देश में रहने वाले 120 करोड़ लोगों का अपमान है।
मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम भगवान श्री राम के नाम पर कोई कल्पना भी नहीं कर सकता कि उनके नाम पर कोई घोटाला और भ्रष्टाचार करने की हिम्मत करेगा। लेकिन जो कागजात मैं आपके सामने दिखाने जा रहा हूं, वो कागजात चिल्ला चिल्ला कर कह रहे हैं कि राम जन्मभूमि ट्रस्ट के नाम पर करोड़ों रुपए चंपत राम जी ने चंपत कर दिया।
हमको आरोप लगते ही रहते हैं। मैं 100 साल से आरोपी देख रहे हैं हम लोग। हम पर महात्मा गांधी की हत्या के आरोप से हम चिंता नहीं करते। आप भी चिंता मत करिए, आप खूब लगाइए। यू आर यस, आई एक्सेप्ट, आई रेडी, यू आल्सो, यू डू इट। आप अपना काम करिए, हम अपना काम करेंगे।
All right, so you heard the reactions over there. There was also a detailed statement that came out last evening, which was put out by Mr. Rai, calling the allegations influenced by politics and misguided. He also claimed that the original purchase of the property had entered into an agreement with the owners years ago, and then applicable price was taken up in March. Now, he also goes on to defend the entire thing. He says that it is important to acquire some property adjacent to the east and west side of the Ram Temple complex to create easy access for pilgrims. And he said the UP government had also been acquiring land in Ayodhya for development work. So property prices have gone up in town. Welcome back. Now, Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, whose Aam Aadmi Party is eyeing to contest the 2022 Gujarat Assembly polls, will be on a one-day visit to the state today. He tweeted yesterday in Gujarati that he will be in Gujarat and that he will be meeting all the brothers and sisters in the state as well, and the time for change has come. He also added that during this visit, he is going to be inaugurating the Aam Aadmi Party's Gujarat state office in Ahmedabad. And remember, this will be Arvind Kejriwal's second visit to Gujarat. He had last visited Surat in February after the party emerged. The main opposition there after the civic body elections had been conducted. All right, shifting our focus from Aam Aadmi Party to Chirag Paswan's party, and what exactly is brewing over there. There seems to be a rift at the moment as 5 MPs have now written into the Lok Sabha Speaker saying, recognize us as another party. All these 5 LJP MPs have now written into the Speaker, but what exactly is brewing? What's the reason behind it? Let's try and understand that from my colleague Manish, joining us on the phone line. Manish, what exactly is brewing and who are these 5 people?
See, first, the main reason behind this is the autocratic style of functioning of Lok Janshakti Party's National President Chirag Paswan. This is being claimed, this is being alleged by most of the MPs, the 5 MPs, which includes his own uncle Pashupati Kumar Paras, who was very close aide of his late father Ramvilas Paswan, and also his cousin brother Prince Raj, who is also the Bihar unit president. Besides, there are 3 more MPs, including one Mr. Chaudhary Mahboob Ali Kaisar, whose son last time contested on a RJD ticket and now he is a RJD legislator. So So, parties don't matter. Post, is more important for him. And there are two upper caste MPs. One is Veena Singh from Baisali, and her husband is also JDU MLC. So, for Nitish Kumar, who is actually the main mastermind behind this entire defection game, because he really wanted to settle scores with Chirag Paswan, because as you know that Chirag fielded candidates against JDU, and in the post-poll analysis, they concluded that it was because of Chirag Paswan's candidates, they lost more than 30-40 seats. So Nitish wanted to teach a lesson to Chirag, and that is why he ensured or masterminded this defection. And now it is to be seen whether first they are going to be treated as a separate bloc, and now we are getting the report that somewhere this entire defection drama has also the tacit support of BJP. So Chirag's uncle, Pashupati Kumar Paras, is likely to be inducted in the next Union Cabinet expansion whenever and it takes place. It is being believed that, the Cabinet expansion might take place within a month or so. So now this Chirag Paswan's isolation within his own party is complete. Now he will have to start from the scratch, and it is to be seen whether, he takes up this challenge or he remains, aloof or, confined to his, ministerial bungalow in Delhi. Sonal.
All right, lots of fascinating details over there that Manish Kumar is bringing us at this point. The rift growing within Chirag Paswan's party, and many of his even close family members now asking to form another party. One could be swayed by the BJP as well. All right, shifting our focus now to Jammu and Kashmir. Is the centre mulling engagement with the regional parties in Jammu and Kashmir, where sources say that centre may start an engagement process with the mainstream parties in Jammu and Kashmir. This on the issue of restoring the statehood and holding assembly elections there as well. While no group has received an invite so far, senior leaders say that there are indications that centre may start some sort of a political initiative.
Is the centre trying to reach out to J&K leaders to end the current political impasse before the second anniversary of abrogation of Article 370? Sources say there are indications New Delhi may start the process of restoration of statehood to Jammu and Kashmir and hold assembly elections in the region. The Gupkar Alliance, or PAGD, headed by Farooq Abdullah, says they are not averse to any dialogue process.
We have never and we will never abandon any such process which provides an opportunity for the people of Jammu and Kashmir to express themselves, to get their grievances redressed. We certainly believe, firmly believe, that whatever has been done, that amounts to virtually undermining the constitutional provisions, the federal structure of the country.
Signs of some political churning were visible after Farooq Abdullah held the meeting of the Gupkar Alliance on Wednesday. The alliance of the regional parties had almost ceased to function over internal differences. The meeting discussed participation of 3 National Conference MPs in the delimitation proceedings, which will redraw the boundaries of assembly constituencies in Jammu and Kashmir.
हम लोग कोर्ट में, सुप्रीम कोर्ट में, और हमने उनसे कहा है आप वो सुप्रीम कोर्ट का पढ़ लीजिए, उसका जवाब आ जाए हमें। डिलिमिटेशन के जो चेयरमैन हैं वो भी सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जज रहे हैं, उनसे जवाब आए तो उसके बारे में फिर हम फैसला करेंगे।
The BJP says they are committed to the restoration of statehood and holding assembly elections in Jammu and Kashmir.
BJP was always committed to hold elections in Jammu and Kashmir. Not only this, as per the statement of our Honorable Home Minister Mr. Amit Shah, the restoration of statehood was a prime goal after the abrogation of Article 370. But what amuses me is the sudden change in the stand of certain Kashmiri leaders.
Ceasefire announcement by India and Pakistan along the line of control in February was the first major peace initiative in Jammu and Kashmir after abrogation of Article 370. Possible engagement by the centre with local leadership could be a major shift in New Delhi's approach on Jammu and Kashmir. In Srinagar, Nazir Masoodi, for NDTV.
Time for an NDTV exclusive now, at a time when India's biggest challenge has become shortage of vaccines to fight the COVID pandemic, comes an important peer-reviewed study that has big policy implications to enable larger vaccine coverage in the population. This study, carried out in Hyderabad and published in the International Journal of Infectious Diseases, says that a single dose vaccination in previously exposed individuals produces sufficient antibody and immune response, and they might not need a second dose. Padma Bhushan, Dr. Nageshwar Reddy tells NDTV's Uma Sudhir in an exclusive interview that it could become an important and effective strategy for India to vaccinate a larger chunk of our population.
At a time when India is struggling with low supply of vaccines, comes this very, very interesting study that seems to suggest that those who have been COVID positive may do with just one dose of vaccine. I have with me Dr. Nageshwar Reddy, who is chairperson of the Asian Institute of Gastroenterology. What is the study, sir, and what do we understand from it?
So, we looked at the patients who had infection to see how they will react to a vaccine. Because of the vaccine shortage, we are wondering whether a single dose may be enough for the patient. So among the hospital staff, we divided them into two groups. One group who had an infection, COVID infection, but recovered from this, and 4 weeks later, between 4 to 12 weeks, got a single dose of vaccine. And the second group of people who never had an infection, second hospital employees. So they have matched controls, about 200 in each group. When we gave this single dose vaccine, we found that those employees who already had an infection and recovered from this, a single dose of the vaccine produced very high levels of antibodies, almost up to 1,000 units of neutralizing antibodies. Whereas if you didn't have the infection, it produced only about 100 units of neutralizing antibodies, indicating that the immediate response to the vaccine is very high if you already have infection previously. But the second most very important thing was when we looked at the memory cells, both the T cells and the B cells, which are actually responsible for long-term immunity, we found that both these are markedly elevated if you have an infection and take the vaccine. But if you just take only the vaccine, the elevation of these memory cells is not so high. So this indicates that if you have an infection, a single dose is sufficient to give you a high levels of neutralizing antibodies, and also it gives you enough memory cells to keep you protected for the next 12 months. This was published in the International Journal of Infectious Disease and is now being quoted very widely.
In very common layperson understanding, it's only antibodies that we understand as giving immunity. What are these memory cells and how significant is their enhanced kind of presence?
Yeah, so antibodies are proteins which are there for short periods of time. They neutralize the virus. But after 3 months, the antibody levels come down and they are no longer protective. But the body has a capacity to memorize whatever new antigen that's available to us, and this memory is stored in some cells, predominantly in the T cells. This memory is stored. So whenever this virus or antigen is introduced again, immediately these memory cells which are in the bone marrow come out, stimulate the B cells to produce large amount of antibodies. So this is like a reserve memory within our body. And these memory cells are very important because they are responsible for long-term immunity, and sometimes they last for years together. Right now, for SARS now we know that at least for 12 months these memory cells are effective.
This obviously has big implications for policy makers as well, because they are looking at vaccine shortage situations too.
Yeah, I think this has got an important national implication, because you now know that you don't have to waste the vaccine, and those who have already had a documented disease can take only single dose anytime between 1 to 3 months, and that is sufficient, and they are protected long term. And in fact, they may be protected for a very long term. We are following up these people now.
Would there be a difference between the kind of vaccine that you take in terms of the antibody response?
So right now we are looking at that. We currently have 3 vaccines available in the market, and we are looking at all the 3 to see if there is any difference. But looks like there is not much of a difference. They are all producing a similar effect.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Reddy. So that's certainly some ray of hope for a country still struggling with the number of vaccines to be able to vaccinate enough of the population to be able to get that kind of an immunity to fight against this COVID pandemic. In Hyderabad with camera person Nagraju, Uma Sudhir, NDTV.
All right, moving on now. As India has emerged from the horrific second wave of coronavirus, COVID-19 treatment costs are to fall as GST rates have been cut. Now, the centre has reduced GST rates on several COVID-related goods, especially oxygen concentrators, ventilators, drugs, especially that are used to treat black fungus infection. But when Can customers actually take the benefits of this reduced taxes as well? We'll look into that report. Also, the thing to highlight here is that GST taxes of 5% on vaccines that have not been waived off.
Crucial COVID resources, oxygen concentrators, ventilators, pulse oximeters and medicines like amphotericin and tocilizumab set to become cheaper after the government's announcement of reduction in the tax rate. GST rates on medicines like amphotericin B and tocilizumab have been reduced from 5% to nil. GST rates on medical equipments like pulse oximeters, oxygen concentrators, ventilators and BiPAPs have been reduced from 12% to 5%. The opposition had demanded zero taxes on all COVID items, but the centre claims zero rating of items would require amendments in GST-related laws. Centre has earlier stated that placing such items in the zero tax category will lead to producers not being able to claim input tax credit. But for many, like 31-year-old Tarun Vadera, who struggled for black fungus medicine amphotericin for his uncle during the crisis, the decision has come too late and fear of the shortage continues.
जैसे कि सरकार ने फैसला लिया है कि जीएसटी पे हम कुछ राहत देंगे कोविड मेडिसिन को रिलेटेड, कोविड इक्विपमेंट्स को रिलेटेड, तो मैं ये कहना चाहूँगा कि इसकी जीएसटी कम करने से कोई राहत नहीं मिलने वाली, क्योंकि ऑलरेडी सबके घरों में स्टॉक ऑलरेडी हो चुका है। और दूसरा क्या है कि जिस टाइम ये महामारी आती है, मेडिसिन लेने जाते हैं तो ये मार्केट में आउट ऑफ स्टॉक हो जाता है, जिसके कारण काला बाजारी, ब्लैक मार्केटिंग ये चालू हो जाती है। तो हमारी सरकार से ये गुजारिश है कि ये ब्लैक मार्केटिंग रोकी जाए।
दवाई का जीएसटी घटाने से दवाई भी तो अवेलेबल होना चाहिए, दवाई अवेलेबल नहीं हर जगह। हम वैक्सीन के लिए 1 महीना से अप्लाई कर रखा हूँ 18+ वाले का, अभी तक नहीं मिल रहा है।
Currently, pharmacists are selling the existing stock at old rates and it may take some time before customers can get the benefits of reduced taxes.
इसका जो जब भी असर आएगा वो भी इम्प्लीमेंट होते 60 to 90 डेज लगते ही होंगे मार्केट का ऑल ओवर इंडिया में फैलने में, जो कुछ होगा उसी रेट पे होगा।
The reduced rates of COVID items will prevail till September 30. The opposition has objected to the time-bound nature of the scheme. Punjab Finance Minister Manpreet Singh Badal has said, this measure should be in place till the pandemic is over. COVID crisis is a once-in-a-century calamity. We need to have a more realistic and reasonable time frame, and one which is based on compassion.
The rates, of course, the reduction will be a big boost to people who are from economically marginalized backgrounds, people who find it tough to arrange finances for medicines, but availability also should be there, is what people say. In New Delhi with camera person Mohammad Mursalan, this is Sukirti Dwivedi for NDTV.
Now, legendary sprinter Milkha Singh's wife, Nirmal Kaur, is no more. Now, she was a former Indian women volleyball team captain as well. She died at the Mohali hospital due to complications related to COVID-19. Condolences to the family. We're going to slip into a break. Back in a moment. Numbers are down, unlocking is underway, and that's happening both in the national capital where Akshay Dongre joins us from and in Tamil Nadu where Sam Daniel is there as well. We'll come to both of you in just a bit to try and understand how exactly this rollout is going to take place. First up, just to give an overview of what's happening to our viewers. Shops, malls, restaurants in the national capital will open from today. This is COVID numbers in the national capital dropped to a 3-month low. However, the Chief Minister said this and allowed this with a warning, saying this is just a trial. If at the end of the week they see escalation in numbers, escalation in the positivity rate as well, they might go back to more stricter norms.
Shops, malls and restaurants will open as COVID cases in the national capital drop to a 3-month low.
जितने मार्केट्स हैं, मार्केट कॉम्प्लेक्स हैं, मॉल्स हैं, वो अब पूरी तरह से सारी दुकानें खुल सकती हैं 10 बजे, लेकिन 10 बजे से 8 बजे तक शाम को। और जो रेस्टोरेंट हैं वो 50% सीटिंग कैपेसिटी पे काम करेंगे।
So what is allowed and what is not? All educational institutions, social, political, cultural, religious gatherings, swimming pools, stadiums, movie halls, public parks and entertainment parks, spas to remain closed. From 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., markets and malls shall reopen while the odd-even system ends. Restaurants with 50% seating for a one-week trial, weekly markets with 50% vendors, places of worship but no devotees allowed, salons to open. But even as Delhi unlocks in a phased manner, an increased footfall at vegetable markets but with strict guidelines.
देखिए, जो लोग मास्क नहीं लगा रहे हैं, हम सबसे पहले तो उनसे अपील करते हैं और अगर उसके बाद नहीं मानते हैं तो उनका चालान किया जा रहा है। मंडी के अंदर लगातार एपीएमसी द्वारा चालान की प्रक्रिया जारी है, लोगों को समझाया जा रहा है। उसके बाद भी अगर कोई नहीं मान रहा है तो हम उनके लाइसेंस निरस्त करने की भी प्रक्रिया अपनाते हैं, पर अभी तक ऐसा कुछ हुआ नहीं है।
पिछले 2 महीने से काफ़ी लॉस हुआ है, कस्टमर्स नहीं थे और बिजनेस पर बहुत बड़ा इफेक्ट पड़ा इस चीज़ का।
देखो, वर्कर को हम 50% सैलरी तो दे ही रहे थे, जो हमारे उनके 50% सैलरी हमने दी है, अपनी जेब से दी है, वो टोटल लॉस है। वो भी कहाँ से लेंगे? जो हमारे रेगुलर कस्टमर्स हैं, मतलब रेगुलर सारे रेगुलर ही हमारे जो एम्प्लॉयज़ हैं, उनको भी तो चाहिए पैसे, वो कैसे सर्वाइव करेंगे उसके बिना? तो हमने उनको 50% दिया, वो सब भी लॉस ही हमारा, हमने कोई अर्न तो कुछ करा नहीं है इसमें।
Like it should not be locked down, but it should be unlocked, and with protocols and all, it should be unlocked. It should be unlocked. Yeah.
With active cases below the 5,000 mark and positivity rate at 0.3%, with strict protocols in place for markets, Delhi is unlocking in a phased manner at a time when it also braces for a possible third wave. With camera person Manu Nair in Delhi, Shanakshi Chakravarti for NDTV.
All right, let's get a live update now from Akshay Dongre. Akshay, Delhi is unlocking. It's a day a lot of people and businesses have actually waited for. But like Arvind Kejriwal highlighted, the onus will remain on how well they are able to follow these COVID-appropriate behavior. Otherwise, we'll again go back into a more stricter sort of arrangement here.
Well, exactly, Sonal. In fact, Arvind Kejriwal also stressed yesterday that how dangerous a third wave in the country can be. Right now, we are at the Khan Market, and as the Delhi government has stated that the shops will remain open from 10 a.m. and the markets, malls will remain open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. But the biggest respite has come for the restaurants that are now allowing customers to come. Right now, we are outside a bakery and we'll get inside, talk to the people who are here, talk to the customers as well, and try and get reaction from them that what exactly were they hoping for as far as business is concerned. But let's first speak to the people who have come. Can I ask your name, please?
Ashish Gautam.
Ashish, so earlier you could not go to a restaurant or bakery and go and sit and eat there. Now that has changed in the unlock. Do you think that it is a welcome move, and what do you think should be the precaution?
It's been a very good development. We've been very eager to go out. Right. We've been stuck at home for like the longest time. Right. Even during the first wave it was like that, but the second wave was kind of devastating, as you all know. So that's been a very welcome move by the government.
Do you think that it provides some kind of mental relaxation as well to come out, actually meet your friends, sit somewhere and eat?
It does actually. I think it's been very stressful for some of us to be working from our homes, to sort of stay in the same setting all these months. Yeah, it is a welcome change.
Right, so it's a welcome move, Sonal, and let's speak to the staff here. Sir, business कैसा था? How was the business earlier? कितना impact आपके ऊपर हुआ था?
Before lockdown या after lockdown? जी. During the lockdown?
Yeah, during the lockdown.
During the lockdown, the footfall was very less. So now the people are coming slowly.
आज से शुरू हुआ है, आप अलाउड भी है रेस्टोरेंट्स में लोगों का आना, आपको लगता है इससे बिजनेस बढ़ेगा आपका?
Certainly sir, business तो बढ़ेगा इससे, because we are now able to welcome our guests inside. So earlier then the people was just coming outside and they're taking just for takeaway.
It was just takeaway. Now yes. People have 50% seating capacity.
Now we are able to give 50% seating. Yes. So now people are coming, we are welcoming them, and they are having they're enjoying food inside.
Yeah. And all the COVID protocols are in place. As I can see, you're wearing gloves, mask, everything.
We are following our protocol of the COVID. We are using the gloves, face shield, mask, and everything.
Right. Thank you so much.
The guest also.
Thank you so much, Virendra. So, Sonal, as you heard the customers as well as the staff here, a welcome move as far as business is concerned, and to many of us who were stuck at homes, who are working from home, this will be a welcome move. But yes, as you have pointed it out, the onus will be on people to contain the pandemic.
Right. I must say, Akshay, you're at a great place to start your day with. I can see lots of very happy customers over there. I think eating and also then salons have been huge relief for people. So let's see what that happens. We'll come back to you around 10 o'clock when those open as well. Thanks for joining us this morning. Let's also get a word from Sam Daniel. Sam, interestingly, Tamil Nadu is not calling it a lockdown. They've actually said this is extension of lockdown with some easing of measures taking place. Take us to what exactly is open, what's not open there.
That's right, Sonal. Second phase of relaxations, although technically the lockdown continues. This time the government has permitted salons, shops selling mobile phones, service centers to remain open till 2 o'clock. Of course, tea shops can give takeaways, and service centers that repair agricultural motors or even electrical home appliances have been allowed to operate till 2 o'clock. Liquor shops, government-owned liquor shops also can remain open from 10 in the morning to 5 in the evening. That has come under controversy because when the DMK was in the opposition, it had opposed reopening of liquor shops when the numbers are still high. The opposition, the AIADMK, has pointed out exactly the same thing and has demanded to keep these shops shut. And of course, salons, we come to you from the Natural Salon at Albert Pet. Customers have started trickling in. Let's speak to Atul here, who's just back from the US after a vacation there. Yeah. Good to be out.
Yeah, good to be out. I wanted to get a haircut, so I came here today.
All right. And last 1 week, were you able to go outside, or you were largely confined to home?
I was confined to my house.
All right. Yeah. And we also have Swati, who runs this salon. Swati, in terms of business, how was it over the last 1 month, ever since Tamil Nadu went on a lockdown?
It was very difficult to be said. Last year, it was not planned. Means we don't know what to do and how to manage the situation, and lot of stuff. There were a lot of questions last year. But this year we are like well prepared for the reopening of the salon. We are all planned, like the safety measures, the vaccination part means all our staffs are got vaccinated. 1 dose of vaccination is already done. Many have got double doses already. So this year is more planned, but financially supporting these people has become very tough because last 1 year people are not still ready to come out to the salons and take the service. So this year, hoping with the vaccinations coming out and people are getting vaccinated, we are hoping that this...
How much of business in terms of slump have you suffered?
It is lot like last year when we reopened till September, we didn't get not even 20% of our sales, the regular sales. From September, it started to pick up. Then again from January it started dipping.
Like were you able to pay salaries to your employees? How does it work?
We were able to pay because I had taken a lot of loans. Because I don't wanted to make them suffer when things are very bad because they are working for us. So I had taken a lot of loans to pay them and for the rent. Those are the major things that we had to plan.
Thank you so much, Swati. Through the day, Sonal will also take you through the other business establishments getting open, including liquor shops and shops selling sweets and savories. But at the moment, it's a calculated risk. Even though the numbers hover around 14,000 every day, the government has taken into account the livelihood aspect and has started the second phase of unlocking across Tamil Nadu. Of course, this is only in the 27 non-hotspot districts.
Right, calculated risk indeed, and I was somehow not expecting to see men so early in the morning. We thought women will be rushing to the salon, so that's interesting to see. And Sam, I hope you booked your slot there as well. We'll catch you again for more details through the day.
I should.
All right, moving on now, and while there seems to be some sense of normalcy actually returning, seeing those unlocks happen, remember, very important to underline that these are supposed to be very carefully done. If not, we again very easily can sort of rumble back into those figures. But talking about figures, after Bihar and Madhya Pradesh, Now, Maharashtra also has added over 8,000 deaths in its data reconciliation process over the past 2 weeks. However, the state health department officials clarified that the reconciliation process was owing to not some diktat coming from courts, as has been the case in the other 2 states, but owing to delayed reporting of deaths and not because of under-reporting. They've said this in the past as well, that at regular intervals
are now being called old deaths were added to the Maharashtra figures in the past 12 days as a part of massive data backlog exercise, taking the total tally of deaths in the state to 1.08 lakh. Since June 1, among the districts that delayed reporting these deaths are Pune, which did not report 1,368 deaths, followed by Thane, 1,167, Nagpur, 503. Other districts include Nasik, Aurangabad, Ahmednagar and Yavatmal. The single-day highest reconciled data was on Friday, which was 2,213 deaths. The Maharashtra government has been adding previous week's data in almost every state health bulletin. However, after criticism from the opposition, the state took up a massive exercise to reconcile missed data. What the state health department does each day at midnight is download the death list from the analytics portal at the state and the district level. Duplicate entries are taken out. The list is sent to districts for verification, and the final list is sent to the state by 5 p.m. According to the state government, delays have happened because district-level hospitals do not update real-time data, shortage of manpower due to overwhelming cases in April and May. Hospitals have been busy with oxygen and bed management during the second wave.
I will summarize by saying mortality statistics, crude data is not to be relied upon by the common man. And secondly, it is the refined statistics and which is required for planning. So, always read the data with correction factors which are necessary and which are talked earlier.
State Health Department has provided a long explanation on how it collects and collates data and denied hiding any information. It says a city like Mumbai has a system in place, but smaller districts lack the manpower and expertise to do so. In Mumbai with camera person Rajendra Dhahalkar, this is Purva Chitnis for NDTV.
All right, moving on. Now, on the second day of the outreach sessions for the G7 summit, speaking in an open society session, Prime Minister Modi shared the concern expressed by several leaders that open societies are particularly vulnerable to disinformation and cyber attacks, and stressed the need to ensure that cyberspace remains an avenue for advancing democratic values and not for subverting it. Highlighting the non-democratic and unequal nature of the global governance institutions, Prime Minister called for reforms of the multilateral system as the best signal of commitment to the cause of open society. The leaders also adopted at the end of the session something called Open Society Statement. Welcome back. Let's take you through a story pick of the day. Yesterday in Tamil Nadu, Mamata Banerjee married socialism with communism and Leninism watching on. Now, before you start scratching your head about what exactly I'm saying, this does not refer to the West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee at all, or the Communist Party or the ideals. But there are two people on your screen right now, one called Mamata Banerjee and the other one called socialism, and they got married yesterday. All this happened in Tamil Nadu. Now, the story is so fascinating because the bride's family, we try to understand why exactly were their names like this. They said that they are from the Congress background and they really believed in the ideology and they wanted to do this socialism. The groom in this place is actually the name of A. Mohan's third son. The former is the district secretary of CPI. The bride, Mamata Banerjee, is from the family of Congress supporters as well. So thus comes the mystery behind their names. They have CPI roots, like I said, strong CPI roots. And what are the odds of them actually getting married together? Now, groom's two brothers were actually named Communism and Leninism. And then the story doesn't end there. Mamata, this one, Mamata, not Mamata Banerjee. Now, she said that she understands and she perhaps understood the significance of her name when she was quite early in life. She takes it very seriously. There was another quote that NDTV got out of her, in which she even complimented the West Bengal Chief Minister, saying that she's a strong woman. We actually caught up with the couple. Take a look.
10th standard வந்ததுக்கு அப்புறம் தான் ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ்லாம் ஒரு மாதிரி பேச ஆரம்பிச்சாங்க. அப்புறம் ஸ்டாஃப்ஸ்லாம் பேர் சொன்னாவே ஒரு மாதிரி பார்க்க ஆரம்பிச்சாங்க. அப்போலேருந்து தான் என் பேரே எனக்கு முழுசாக தெரியும். அவங்க வந்து ஸ்ட்ராங் உமன். நான் நிறைய நியூஸ்லலாம் பார்த்துருக்கேன் அவங்கள. ரொம்ப ஸ்ட்ராங் லேடி. வெரி ப்ரவுட் டு சே திட்ஸ்.
சோஷலிசம் மம்தா பானர்ஜி இந்த இணைப்புங்கிறது வந்து ரொம்ப சந்தோஷமாக இருக்குது. வாழ்க்கை முழுக்கும் இந்த வந்து ரொம்ப கடினமான காலமாகவும் சரி சந்தோஷமாக காலமாகவும் சரி இணைப்பிரியாவ ஒட்டுக்காக இருப்போம். வாழும் வரை ஒட்டுக்காகவே இருப்போம். என்னதான் நடந்தாலும் சரி ஒட்டுக்காக இருப்போம்.
Well, we don't know about parties and their ideologies, but wishing two of them at least a happy married life. Let's take a break on that one. It's time for a special campaign now, Vaccinate India, in partnership with Google, where we're discussing questions that you might often be Googling away. We're joined on the program today by Dr. Nangya, joining us for this special broadcast. Thank you so much for your time. I want to start by asking you, one of the questions that often pops up in our Google searches is, what can I do to prevent COVID? And this is so important, Dr. Nangya, at this point, because, you know, India is unlocking. A lot of people will now start stepping out for work and other things. So what are some of the things they should keep in mind to ensure that they don't contract the virus?
That's a very valid question, Sonal, and thank you for asking me right in the morning. These are all very simple precautions that we've been reiterating all these last 18 months or 19 months probably. That first of all, move out only if it is very, very essential. You know, don't just move out for the heck of moving out, for roaming around, for strolling. Parties, big gatherings have to be avoided completely. Even if you do have to move out, you should be wearing a mask at all times. Mask is very, very essential primarily because it protects you yourself and also protects the infection to spread from you to the others.
Right.
You know, to your all near and dear ones and loved ones.
And would you say
because
people should still be sticking to double masks right now?
Right. I was just coming to that. So before that, I would want to say that what is essential is to understand that you can, you know, when you contract the virus, you could spread the infection 2 days before the onset of symptoms. Meaning that if I was to start my infection today, like fever today, then probably from 2 days prior, I've been spreading it to all others. Therefore, to think that I have no symptoms, therefore I should not be wearing a mask is absolutely incorrect. So you have to be wearing a mask at all times, whether you have symptoms or no symptom. Now, as far as the mask is concerned, the mask has to be properly fitted. It should be snugly fitted, covering the nose, the mouth, extending right out to the chin. So this entire area has to be snugly fitted. It should not be loose. If it is loose, then the air would go in and the viruses can come out and go in either way. Double mask has shown to reduce the spread of infection to some extent, primarily for two reasons. One, because it provides 2 layers of protection. And second, that it takes care of either of the 2 masks being ill-fitting, then the other one would take care of that.
Right.
So that is about the mask. Then, of course, is social distancing. We have to maintain the social distancing at all times. Stay away from people, stay away from crowded places, avoid all those things. Even once the schools, colleges open, I'm sure there'll be adequate precautions that need to be taken for, you know, placing their benches separately and different timings, staggered timings. I would, in fact, urge all the offices, private and government, to have different timings for different people, you know, rather than calling everybody from 9 to 5, 9 to 6. Probably they could have it in shifts, different slots. Even the lunchtime and the tea coffee breaks could be at different times. And finally, we have to keep our hands clean. Hand hygiene is very, very essential. It's a very good idea to carry those hand sanitizers in your pockets or your bags or your purses at all the times. And not to forget, above all, is the vaccination. You know, vaccination is something that all of us must go in for at the earliest. Whoever is eligible should go in for the vaccine at the first available opportunity.
Right. If I could just add 2 bits over there to what Dr. Nangya has actually just said. Even if you are vaccinated, do not drop your mask.
Absolutely.
Even if you are doubly vaccinated, do not go out unnecessarily into gatherings. And another important thing that has emerged over the time is actually ventilation. Even if you are meeting some people and you cannot avoid it, ensure that your room is nicely ventilated. That is also extremely key. Which brings me to the next question, that suppose people
Another thing, can I just add in one more thing here?
Yeah, please.
So a lot of people actually, you know, get their antibodies tested and feel if their antibodies levels are, let's say, 100 and above or 200, 500. They're like, they have a very good immune system. Well, again, let me reiterate here that that's not correct. Antibodies, whether they are 50, 100, 200, you're equally prone to developing the infection if you have to. And even people with very high antibody titers have had very severe illnesses. So antibodies are not a measure or an indication or a gauge to say that you're adequately immune and you could drop your guard. So the masks cannot come off at any stage. That's the bottom line.
So don't take your antibody test as this false sense of protection that you have. You still have to carry out all precautions. It's going to be hard for a lot of people to do, but we have to do it if we want to avoid the next wave. And that brings me to the next question. Dr. Nangle, at this point, suppose you do get the virus at this point, what are some of the self-care tips that people can take care and can sort of imply?
So, as far as now, the government has come out with very clear-cut guidelines as to what is to be done in an asymptomatic patient, to a mildly symptomatic patient, to moderate and then severe. So when you initially contract the virus, the first thing is to isolate yourself. Even before you go in for testing, what is important is that the first onset of symptom, like if you have a sore throat this morning, best would be to stay indoors and not move out at all. Get yourself tested on the second or the third day when the symptoms are a little more frank and florid. Otherwise, if you're totally asymptomatic and it's just been detected incidentally, like if you were to travel somewhere and you've got your test done and it turned out to be positive, again, what is very essential is to remain isolated for the next 10 days. Do not think that you have a mild illness. What people do quite often is they get themselves tested the first time, it's positive. They test again 2 days later because they have no symptoms, thinking that, the disease is like your first test is probably falsely positive. So this is also I would say a big mistake. When they test the second time, it may turn out to be negative. But then that doesn't mean that you start moving out. Once tested positive, has to be isolated for 10 days. And there is no role of retesting themselves, whether they have symptoms or whether they don't have any symptoms.
Right. All very important points.
Once tested positive, is considered to be positive for the next 10 days. Right. And they have to be isolated. If not 10 days, then after 14 days, whatever. But you have to be isolated. So that is one thing. In order to
avoid really a third wave, all of us have to practice that till the time everybody is safe and everybody is vaccinated. Nobody is safe, really. So that should be your guiding light on this. Thanks so much for your time, Doctor.
Thank you.
All right, time for an NDTV exclusive now. At a time when India's biggest challenge has become the shortage of vaccines to fight the COVID pandemic, comes an important peer-reviewed study that has big policy implications to enable large vaccine coverage in the population. This study, carried out in Hyderabad and published in the International Journal of Infectious Diseases, says that a single-dose vaccination in previously exposed individuals produces sufficient antibodies and immune response, and they might not need a second dose at all. NDTV's Umar Sudhir spoke exclusively with the Padma Bhushan Dr. Nageshwar Reddy. And he also talks about that it could become an important and effective strategy for India to vaccinate a larger population.
At a time when India is struggling with low supply of vaccines, comes this very, very interesting study that seems to suggest that those who have been COVID positive may do with just one dose of vaccine. I have with me Dr. Nageshwar Reddy, who is chairperson of the Asian Institute of Gastroenterology. What is the study, sir, and what do we understand from it?
So, we looked at the patients who had infection to see how they will react to a vaccine. Because of the vaccine shortage, we are wondering whether a single dose may be enough for the patient. So, among the hospital staff, we divided them into two groups. One group who had an infection, COVID infection, but recovered from this, and 4 weeks later, between 4 to 12 weeks, got a single dose of vaccine. And the second group of people who never had an infection, second hospital employees. So they have matched controls, about 200 in each group. When we gave this single dose vaccine, we found that those employees who already had an infection and recovered from this, a single dose of the vaccine produced very high levels of antibodies, almost up to 1,000 units of neutralizing antibodies. Whereas if you didn't have the infection, it produced only about 100 units of neutralizing antibodies, indicating that the immediate response to the vaccine is very high if you already have infection previously. But the second most very important thing was when we looked at the memory cells, both the T cells and the B cells, which are actually responsible for long-term immunity, we found that both these are markedly elevated if you have an infection and take the vaccine. But if you just take only the vaccine, the elevation of these memory cells is not so high. So this indicates that if you have an infection, a single dose is sufficient to give you a high levels of neutralizing antibodies, and also it gives you enough memory cells to keep you protected for the next 12 months. This was published in the International Journal of Infectious Disease and is now being quoted very widely.
In very common layperson understanding, it's only antibodies that we understand as giving immunity. What are these memory cells and how significant is their enhanced kind of presence?
Yeah, so antibodies are proteins which are there for short periods of time. They neutralize the virus. But after 3 months, the antibody levels come down and they are no longer protective. But the body has a capacity to memorize whatever new antigen that's available to us, and this memory is stored in some cells, predominantly in the T cells. This memory is stored. So whenever this virus or antigen is introduced again, immediately these memory cells which are in the bone marrow come out, stimulate the B cells to produce large amount of antibodies. So this is like a reserve memory within our body. And these memory cells are very important because they are responsible for long-term immunity, and sometimes they last for years together. Right now, for SARS now we know that at least for 12 months these memory cells are effective.
This obviously has big implications for policymakers as well, because we are looking at a vaccine shortage situation still.
Yeah, I think this has got an important national implication, because you now know that you don't have to waste the vaccine, and those who have already had a documented disease can take only single dose anytime between 1 to 3 months, and that is sufficient, and they are protected long term. And in fact, they may be protected for a very long term. We are following up these people now.
Would there be a difference between the kind of vaccine that you take in terms of the antibody response?
So right now we are looking at that. We currently have 3 vaccines available in the market, and we are looking at all the 3 to see if there is any difference. But looks like there is not much of a difference. They are all producing a similar effect.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Reddy. So that's certainly some ray of hope for a country still struggling with the number of vaccines to be able to vaccinate enough of the population to be able to get that kind of an immunity to fight against this COVID pandemic. In Hyderabad, with camera person Nagraju, Uma Sudhir, NDTV.
All right, moving on. The Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, whose Aam Aadmi Party is eyeing to contest the 2022 Gujarat Assembly polls, is on a one-day visit to Ahmedabad. He tweeted earlier on, in Gujarati mind you, saying that I'm coming to Gujarat, now Gujarat will change, and will meet all the brothers and sisters of Gujarat as well. Remember, during his visit, he is likely to inaugurate the party's Gujarat state office in Ahmedabad. And this is the second visit for him in Gujarat. The last he had visited was in February, when in the local civic body elections, Aam Aadmi Party emerged as the main opposition. All right, shifting our focus to what's happening in Chirag Paswan's party, where there seems to be a massive rift coming up over there, where we're now at this point told that at least 5 MPs of the LJP have decided to move away from him. They have in fact written to the Speaker of Lok Sabha saying that they want to form another outfit altogether. Now, importantly, these 5 include the uncle of Chirag Paswan as well. Now, many saying that these MPs at this point have been not very happy with the functioning of Chirag Paswan. Remember, he became the party president just a few days before his father passed away. Sadly, that was before the polls in the state. And since then, there has been rift brewing in within the party pertaining to his leadership. And now it's out in the open with 5 MPs writing in to the Speaker. Talking about rifts in the party, well, that goes to West Bengal as well, where after Mukul Roy quit the BJP and rejoined his old party, the Trinamool Congress, speculation is rife of over 2 more names doing a Ghar Vapsi. The first is Rajiv Banerjee, former TMC leader, minister who had criticized the BJP in the Facebook post. He met TMC leaders over the weekend. And the second name is of a Congress leader and former President Pranab Mukherjee's son, Abhijit Mukherjee, as well. Now, speculation is that Abhijit Mukherjee will be offered the Jangipur Assembly seat, but we'll talk more about that with Saurabh joining us live now. Saurabh, we had expected, Mamata Banerjee had said it in the press conference that there will be more doing Ghar Wapsi at this point. But who are these names really that we're looking at? And Pranab Mukherjee's son, that's an interesting twist.
Yes, there is a certain amount of speculation that Abhijit Mukherjee might be offered the Jangipur Assembly seat. Now, remember, his father and former president, Pranab Mukherjee, before he became president, was MP from Jangipur in Parliament, in the Lok Sabha. He won that seat in 2009 and in 2004 and 2009. And then, of course, he vacated that seat in 2012. And then, of course, he, that seat went to Abhijit Mukherjee in a by-election, and Abhijit Mukherjee won that seat that time. And of course, in 2019, he lost to the Trinamool. This time, he's being offered the Jangipur Assembly seat, which is what sources are telling us. And the other name that's doing the rounds, of course, is former TMC minister, Rajiv Banerjee, who dramatically left. Remember, when he left the Trinamool Congress, he left with a photo of Mamata Banerjee. And now, of course, there are talks of him returning to the party as well. He met senior TNC leader Partho Chatterjee. Of course, sources say that the meeting was a condolence meeting. Mr. Chatterjee's mother passed away. And the fact is that there is enough political speculation that Rajiv Banerjee might be accommodated as well. But beyond that, the Trinamool seems to be very picky and choosy about whom it actually wants to take back, given the fact that they've won a massive victory, even without these leaders who the BJP believed would damage the Trinamool, whose exits would damage the Trinamool. But in fact, nothing of the sort happened. In fact, Rajiv Banerjee, remember, flew on a private jet to meet Amit Shah and with several other TMC turncoats, and all of them lost those elections. So obviously, the political speculation is on, but one really cannot tell till it actually happens.